Welcome back. The interim government in Bangladesh, led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, will be sworn in tonight. The new system will have the task of maintaining law and order and organizing elections within 3 months. Muhammad Yunus landed in Dhaka from Paris on Thursday afternoon. He will have an advisory council of 15 ministers. Let's listen into what he said when he landed in Dhaka.
Using the means of revolution, Bangladesh will create its new dawn of victory. Keeping this vision ahead of us, we have to keep going ahead. I want to express my gratitude and praise the youths who have made this possible. They have protected this country and given it a rebirth, and we wish for this new Bangladesh to progress with speed. We have to protect this freedom. Not just protect it, we have to ensure that it reaches every single household. Otherwise, the freedom will have no meaning. The entire Bangladesh is one big family, and we want to progress together by removing all doubts and differences. Could Bangladesh ever come this far without Sheikh Hasina? Nobody has ever imagined that Bangladesh would have such developments. Fair enough. What will happen to you after post-Sheikh Hasina regime? It is none of my concern nor my family's anymore. You will realize. But nobody can take over the power in this way, with creating conflicts, committing murders. This is not a movement anymore. When police and civilians are being killed, houses being burnt, journalists murdered, this has turned into terror. And there is only one way to resist the terror. I reiterate, the law enforcement agencies, Border Guard Bangladesh, and even the military, your responsibility is to keep the country and countrymen safe, and its constitution protected.
And before we proceed further, let's take a look at who Professor Muhammad Yunus is and why he was chosen to run the interim government.
Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned and fled the country on Monday following weeks of deadly protests. They began as student-led demonstrations against government job quotas, but they quickly surged into a movement demanding both Hasina's resignation and that her arch-rival, a Nobel Prize winner named Muhammad Yunus, helm an interim government. Yunus has accepted the request, but what do we know about him? Yunus has been called the banker to the poor and a pioneer of the global microcredit movement. Microcredit lending is the idea of extending small loans to very poor people, often small business owners. Yunus and the Grameen Bank he founded won the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize for helping lift millions from poverty by providing microloans to Bangladesh's rural poor. Their lending model has since inspired similar projects around the world, and Yunus started Grameen America, focused on U.S. women living in poverty, in 2008. As his success grew, Yunus flirted briefly with a political career and attempted to form his own party in 2007. His ambitions were widely viewed as having sparked Hasina's ire, who accused him of, quote, sucking blood from the poor. His critics have also said his microlenders charge excessive rates and make money off the poor. But Yunus said the rates were far lower than local interest rates in developing countries. Hasina's government removed him as head of Grameen Bank in 2011, saying that at 73 he had stayed on past the legal retirement age of 60. Thousands of Bangladeshis formed a human chain to protest his ouster. Yunus was already in the spotlight this year, facing a slew of legal troubles. He was sentenced in January to 6 months in prison for labor law violations. Then in June, he and 13 others were indicted on charges of embezzlement from the Workers' Welfare Fund of a telecoms company he founded. The same month, Yunus discussed his legal troubles in an interview with Reuters.
And the cases are very flimsy, made-up stories, have stolen monies, forgery, embezzlement, cheating the rights of cheating the labor, not giving them their proper money that they deserve.
Though he was ultimately not jailed in either of those cases, Yunus still faces more than 100 other cases on graft and other charges. In the June interview, Yunus was openly critical of Hasina and the state of Bangladeshi politics.
Well, Bangladesh doesn't have any politics left. I mean, there's only one party who's active and occupy everything, do everything, get to the elections in their way.
Following Hasina's exit, Yunus told Indian broadcaster Times Now that Monday, August 5th, marked the, quote, second liberation day for Bangladesh after its 1971 War of Independence from Pakistan.
So this is the first part of our six-part discussion which we are going to have. We're going to cover the swearing in live. I'm joined by Salim Samad, independent journalist, right defender, live from Dhaka. And thank you so much, sir, for joining me. And Sandeep Unithan, my colleague. Let me go across to Sandeep first. Sandeep, the man of the moment is Muhammad Yunus, but do you think he's up to the task of handling the government for 3 months, organizing the elections, and ensuring that the peace returns?
Absolutely. I think he is up to the task, Karthikeya, simply because he is literally the last man left standing in Bangladesh who has some amount of credibility after Sheikh Hasina departed the scene. The military has made it very clear that they don't want to come out of the barracks and get into this messy business of governance or, supervising this the interim government. They're very happy keeping law and order, keeping the peace, as Salim told us just yesterday, Salim Samad told us yesterday. But clearly he is the man who commands the kind of respect among Bangladeshis, not only because of his Nobel Prize, but also the kind of work that he's done with the Grameen Bank. He is literally a mass leader of the kind that Bangladesh has not seen in a long time.
Okay, Mr. Samad, you have is it right to say that you have an apolitical person for a very important political job in a country's history?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Samad? Am I audible to you?
The audio is missing.
Okay. Now, am I audible to you now? Okay.
Now, yes. Okay, thank you.
So my question to you, sir, is that is it correct to say that you have a technocrat, apolitical person for the most politically important job in country's history?
Yes, this is not the first time that he is in the interim government. He was in the interim government in the 1991 interim government, which was only for 3 months, and he was responsible for the environment ministry, or yes, environment and yes. So and that 3 months, I had very closely worked with him because I was at that time as an environment journalist. I was working very close with him, and I always found him that he's a listener. That is one of the worst thing in this region called Bangladesh. The people of Bangladesh is a very bad listener, but he used to listen. And whatever, I mean, that is, I have. Plus, I have, in fact, knew him when he first started his bank. I was the only and the first reporter who had exhaustively report on how the women's empowerment had contributed to the local GDP, and in fact, the price of essentials that has risen. So I have, this is one. And secondly, he has developed an image, not because among us, because the global image, because he's the inventor of microcredit. That's one. Number two is that he has a huge base in the villages of Bangladesh. Literally 2.5 million women has been brought out of poverty. So they are all self-sufficient. That's his job. So I believe that he is very honest, and he's very, he keeps his promises. That is
he can be the glue. He can be the glue.
Glue.
He can be the glue to keep the system together. Glue.
One thing that, let me tell you one thing. I think you must be knowing it very much better. If the interim government, I'm not sure whether he's going to make a address this evening after the oath, a national address, where I'm not sure that usually interim government is for 3 months. In the 3 months, he cannot change any law. He cannot amend any law. So the only job, the only mandate they have is to hold a free, fair and inclusive election. that I can trust that he can do it. So I'm not sure what will happen after the election, because there will be other multi-party. But the students, for the first time in Bangladesh history, or even in anywhere in the region, the students have been included in the two of the student leaders are included in the cabinet. So they will be the rank and status of a minister. So you just imagine that this is something that is honoring the protesters and is honoring the people who have sacrificed, the 400 people. He mentioned several times about those sacrificed, and those who are in the hospital, literally probably almost 2,000 are in different hospitals of Bangladesh. So he has also, and I am sure that tomorrow he will be visiting some of the hospitals to meet those young, the young people that he always is proud of.
Okay, so the second part of our conversation is about former Prime Minister and BNP leader Khaleda Zia. Was released on Tuesday. She's an arch rival of Sheikh Hasina and was serving a sentence of 17 years in a graft case. Now, BNP held a massive rally in Dhaka on Wednesday, where they called for general elections in 3 months to restore the democratic process in the country, which is obviously going to happen. Khaleda Zia addressed the rally virtually, her first public address in 6 years. She expressed her gratitude to the student protesters and promised to make Bangladesh prosperous again. Let's listen in to Khaleda Zia.
দীর্ঘদিন অসুস্থ থাকার পর আপনাদের সামনে কথা বলতে পারার জন্য আল্লাহর কাছে শুকরিয়া আদায় করছি। আমার কারাবন্দী অবস্থায় আপনারা আমার কারামুক্তি ও রোগ মুক্তির জন্য সংগ্রাম করেছেন, দোয়া করেছেন। সেজন্য আমি আপনাদের সকলকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। দীর্ঘ আন্দোলন সংগ্রাম ও ত্যাগের মধ্য দিয়ে আমরা ফ্যাসিবাদী অবৈধ সরকারের কাছ থেকে মুক্তি পেয়েছি। আমি আন্তরিক ধন্যবাদ জানাতে চাই আমাদের বীর সন্তানদের, যারা মরণপণ সংগ্রাম করে এই অসম্ভবকে সম্ভব করেছে। শত শত শহীদদের জানাই শ্রদ্ধা। এ বিজয় আমাদের নতুন সম্ভাবনা নিয়ে এসেছে। দীর্ঘদিনের নজিরবিহীন দুর্নীতি, গণতন্ত্রের ধ্বংসের স্তূপের মধ্য থেকে আমাদের নির্মাণ করতে হবে এক সমৃদ্ধ বাংলাদেশ। ছাত্র তরুণরাই আমাদের ভবিষ্যৎ। তরুণরা এই যে স্বপ্ন নিয়ে বুকের রক্ত ঢেলে দিয়েছে, সেই স্বপ্ন বাস্তবায়নে করতে মেধা, যোগ্যতা, জ্ঞান ভিত্তিক গণতান্ত্রিক বাংলাদেশ গড়ে তুলতে হবে। শোষণহীন সমৃদ্ধ বাংলাদেশ, সকল ধর্মের গোত্রের অধিকার নিশ্চিত করতে হবে। শান্তি।
The BNP has been the main opposition party in Bangladesh, but they boycotted 2024 general elections, alleging that Awami League was involved in rigging. Khaleda Zia is the chairperson of BNP and has been Prime Minister of the country twice. Though the son is playing a prominent role. Sandeep, do you think that her party can make a comeback, or do you think it's weak?
I think it's been out in the wilderness for very long, Kartikeya, because the Awami League had literally, and Sheikh Hasina had literally gone after the BNP, locked up many of its leaders. Khaleda Zia herself was facing a 15-year sentence. Tariq Zia, her son, the acting chairperson of the BNP, was hounded out as well. So there was literally no space for the BNP. But it's going to be a very interesting story in the next couple of months, whether the BNP can really bounce back and reclaim its political legacy. Because let's not forget that the students' movement, this is actually, Sheikh Hasina was ousted not by the BNP or the Jamaat. She was ousted by the student leaders.
Absolutely.
And the students have come out in numbers that we have not seen previously in the country's history, and they've become a force. So I would look very closely at the students, like the two leaders that Salim Samad mentioned, who are part of the interim government, Nahid Islam and Asif Mahmood, two of the young student leaders who led these protests. One remains, one needs to look at what kind of political role they will play. Will they step up, form a political party of their own, possibly a third front in Bangladesh politics? Like say the Aam Aadmi Party rose from in Delhi
that's
a decade ago.
Mr. Samad, can there be a sort of an Aam Aadmi Party experiment in Bangladesh? A third force coming up, taking everyone by surprise?
I will not rule out your hypothesis, but it is also equally true that Khaleda Zia was also twice thrown out of the government. There was a violence in 1996. The street violence had forced Khaleda Zia to quit power. So she was also equally an autocratic, and her regime was very, very corrupt. So the two women have a lot of things commonalities, except the only common thing not common is the rivalry. But yes, you are talking about because the people, the students. Let me tell you one thing before I mention about the third party or the third option, which is that the students have already announced that they will be may not allow the BNP and the Awami League to be the majority in the next election. So that is also a hint that you have mentioned. So there by the time, but I am not sure within 3 months whether you can float a third party or an alternative party. But that is also very important, because the students have already demanded that this interim government should be extended for at least 2 years. So, but Professor Yunus, of course, doesn't want to stay in responsibility for looking after this government, because you have to. Because you can just imagine the students are now in all the groceries bazaar, so all over the country, trying to make sure that the prices are at least reasonable and people can buy the groceries. So I don't know whether the students will be able to continue for the next 3 months. They are trafficking, mentioning even night neighborhood watch, because there are a lot of vandalism, as you are aware. So this is another issue. That the thousands of even now college students in the district towns, small towns have also joined as a volunteer for traffic management, etc., etc. And of course the grocery stores at night in the neighborhood watch. So coming with the third party is very important, that whether it is not in the history of Bangladesh that a third party has been created in 3 months. So maybe it may extend for 6 months. Then only can they, and that again has to be registered with the Election Commission. And meanwhile, I must add for your audience, which is very important, the Tariq Rahman, he has 2 verdicts from the Supreme Court, upheld by the Supreme Court. One is the death penalty and one is the life imprisonment.
Okay.
And of course, several corruption cases. So it is not very rare. It's very rare. It's not. Has never happened that the High Court, Supreme Court has been overturned. Especially, I'm not sure whether Tariq Rahman.
So you basically next 3 months will be full of surprises. The election can be full of surprises. The Bangladesh will need to be tracked. You stay with me, sir. Let me play out an explainer made by News 9 Plus on Khaleda Zia. A lot of people wouldn't remember Khaleda Zia when she was in power. The sort of people would say it's the Battle of Begums in Bangladesh. So I'm playing this out for you so that you understand that if there was Sheikh Hasina, then there was also Khaleda Zia.
Soon after Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government fell and she fled the country, several people in jail were ordered to be released. This included detained student protesters and also Sheikh Hasina's rival Khaleda Zia. Who is Khalida Zia and what role will she play in Bangladesh now? News 9 Plus decodes. 78-year-old Begum Khalida Zia is the jailed chairperson of the main opposition party, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. She is also the wife of the country's first military dictator, late Ziaur Rahman, who was the president of Bangladesh from 1977 to 1981. A decade later, she became the first woman to get the Bangladesh's prime minister post. She served as the premier from March 1991 to February 1996 and again from October 2001 to October 2006. Why was Khalida Zia in jail? Well, she was accused of corruption and misuse of power by Sheikh Hasina. In 2018, she was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Her party claimed that the accusations were false and an attempt to weaken the opposition. In fact, even as Sheikh Hasina won the elections earlier this year, her government was accused of throttling dissent. Khalida Zia's release decision was announced by President Muhammad Shahabuddin just hours after Sheikh Hasina resigned as the Prime Minister. How will Khalida Zia's release affect Bangladesh's politics? Sheikh Hasina's ouster and Khalida Zia's return is likely to strengthen the BNP as well as other opposition parties. But BNP has ties with the anti-secular Jamaat-e-Islami Party. BNP's rise could boost the Jamaat's Islamist agenda. This could further fuel anti-minority hate and attacks in Bangladesh. What's the role of Khalida Zia's son? Her younger son, Tariq Rahman, also known as Tariq Zia, has been the acting chairman of the party in her absence, but he lives in London. He has been vocal about supporting the student protest. He even wrote on social media about rebuilding Bangladesh. This hints at his interest in taking a more active role in the country's politics now. Amid the discussion about an interim government comes the question of who will be the next Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Khalida Zia could be one of the names, but she is quite unwell. So, this could be an opportunity for a son to step out from the backdrop.
Now, before I go to the third part of our discussion, because anytime soon the swearing-in ceremony will start, I am also joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much for joining me. But let me take our viewers through the third part of our conversation. You know, what started as a protest against a quota system for the government job in Bangladesh quickly turned into large-scale, I would say, Andolan, protest. That's the best word, because it's common. Andolan is a common word between Hindi and Bengali. It's a common word. It led to arson, it led to looting, it led to rioting, violence against the minorities, even Ahmadiyyas. They were all targeted. So one part of this development is suddenly how come assets related to India, for example, Indira Gandhi Cultural Center, half of the staff of the diplomatic mission is back in Delhi. Even the Ahmadiyyas got targeted. I'll go to Mr. Samad and then I'll go to Ambassador Sikri. Mr. Samad, why did this happen? Because the protest was about quotas and against Sheikh Hasina's autocratic rule. So why did this acquire this tenor, you know, or did the fringe element join in? Can you just take us through why did this violence happen?
This violence always happened before, always had happened before, but I will not justify that this has to be condemned. And today, as I understand, Professor Yunus has already declared that this has to stop immediately. So I believe that something has started moving since yesterday. So yesterday, the violence, maybe there are few vandalism is still continuing. But one of the reasons is, let me be very frank, one of the reasons is that the Hindus are believed to be the voters of Awami League, the supporters of Awami League. They are believed to be the bloc vote for Awami League. Obviously, they are, and plus they are a soft target. That is one of the reasons they were targeted. It also happened in several other elections, before the election, after the election, different elections. So this is one. The secondly is that the Hindus have do not have a united front. So they cannot voice their protest. That's another big problem with them. So they always rely on Awami League to, in fact, to look after. But Ahmadis, for example, the Ahmadi Muslim, even the Muslims in Bangladesh has never been spared. Every Friday, which is tomorrow, the Ahmadis, the mosque, the Friday Jummah prayer, every Friday, the Ahmadis are attacked in the in all the mosques all over the country. But they don't have hundreds and mosques, but they have only possibly 32 mosques. So all of the mosques are attacked every Friday. So this is the routine. So no newspapers have stopped reporting this story of the Ahmadiyya Muslim, but they are Muslim, of course.
Ambassador Sikri, how do you explain this, as Mr. Samad said, how do you explain this strain in the Bangladeshi politics?
Well, let me say quite clearly that I'm so surprised to hear that violence is being justified. For example, it's not only on this channel, I'm hearing in so many other places, they're saying, oh, but you know, the number of people being killed now is less than what Sheikh Hasina did. Or now the explanation is that because they're a vote bank for Awami League, so they should be killed. Now, this is not the way to run a constitutional democracy. I mean, you cannot have this. We know that now it is a question of the Jamaat-e-Islami asserting its power, and they have always been in the forefront of the violence against the Hindus, the violence against the Ahmadiyyas and all the other communities that is there. And look at the visuals you're showing of the Indian Cultural Center being destroyed. No explanation was given for that. Why was the Indian Cultural Center attacked? Why has the Indian government been forced to bring back the people because of the security threat to their safety? And today all visa operations in Bangladesh have been stopped. So there'll be no more issuing of visas for the Bangladeshi citizens. So this is a very worrisome situation. And I think that two wrongs never make a right. And if this is the way in Bangladesh, I do not think it's the way, but to justify it on the grounds that this happens before, so now papers don't even write about it. And today, as of today, we know that in Bangladesh, the best newspapers, I know all of them, they're not writing about this violence because they're scared that if they describe the violence, they themselves, their offices will be vandalized. BBC and New York Times are justifying it by quoting people and saying this is revenge attack. Now, what kind of a constitutional democracy is this where you're going to have revenge attacks to justify the killing of Hindus and you're going to kill the Awami League because they're not going to vote for you? You know, one of the biggest complaints against the Sheikh Hasina government has been that the elections were not participatory. And they're saying that, oh, the young students never participated in the elections. But now what is happening is that you want to prevent other people from participating by killing them off. You want to prevent the Awami League from participating in any future elections by just killing them off. Now, this is a very strange situation. So you're talking already about the future elections being non-participatory. And students and others have been talking already that we don't need to have elections for the next 3 to 6 years because you need that much time to set everything right. So, you know, these are very worrying tendencies and evolvements that are happening in the last 3-4 days in Bangladesh, and certainly that today we know that at this very time Professor Dr. Muhammad Yunus is being sworn in as the head of the interim government, and for the last 3 days he's been making such statements that there should be no violence, we should not stop our victory, we should not spoil our victory, this is a second liberation. So, you know, is this a liberation from the first liberation war? Are we seeing a new set of values instead of those which have defined the constitution of Bangladesh and the ethos of the first liberation war? So, you know, these are very important questions that are coming in the minds of everybody, that why is all this happening? Of course, I think Indian government would like to continue its relationship with the interim government led by Professor Muhammad Yunus. The Indian High Commissioner is going for the swearing-in ceremony, and we are waiting to see the announcement of the other members of the interim government. But it is worrisome.
It's worrisome. Sandeep, you also made a documentary on this?
On the
violence?
upheaval?
Yes.
No, we are working on one, but you know, I want to basically add to what Ambassador Sikri mentioned. The fact is that Mr. Muhammad Yusuf has said that Yunus, my mistake, that, you know, some countries like India, I'm reading out from his Economist article written just about 2 days back. He said countries like India backed the ousted Prime Minister and earned the enmity of the Bangladeshi people as a result. He's mentioned that very clearly there. in a sense, explaining what's going on, the kind of violence and the attacks on Indian institutions that we've been seeing in Bangladesh. And the other important point that he made, and Ambassador Sikri made a mention of that as well, he said that the second liberation that occurred on the 5th of August, these are the words that he's used in this Economist article. He's called it a second liberation on the 5th of August. Now that, it sounds very, milk and honey on one level, but the other aspect I'm worried about is that what does the second liberation really mean? Do you mean that you're going to start redoing the constitution, rewriting the constitution, turning back a lot of things that Sheikh Hasina did over the last 15 years, especially when it came to India-Bangladesh ties?
I think Mr. Samad said that no law can be changed by the... Mr. Samad, no law can be changed in between?
No way. They cannot scrap the constitution, they cannot amend, they cannot add. I mean, everything has to be done by the elected government. So right now there will no new narratives. So okay. I would just to add to Ambassador Sikri. I mean, Ambassador Sikri was in Bangladesh when the BNP came to power. I mean, in 2001, and Ambassador Sikri has witnessed that the violence against the Hindus and of course the religious or other minorities and journalists, in fact, hundreds of journalists were attacked. Okay, so that continued for 5 months. So, and it was impossible for those violence to be stopped all over the Bangladesh. And luckily, the High Court, in fact, gave a verdict, so that made everything to stop. That was one issue. So, Ambassador Sikri, well, I'm not saying that this is going to continue, but the mindset of the people of Bangladesh is very, very peculiar. I mean, they are very, they are not at all secular, for the last, since the Bangladesh was born. I am a product of Mukti Bahini, so I have never seen the people of Bangladesh, the people who talk about secularism, which is Awami League, they themselves had taken the Jamaat-e-Islami in their lap, and they have given them a lot of concessions. So that is one of the reasons that Jamaat-e-Islam's madrasas have got jobs in the government, in the military, in the police. You just name a professor, they are there. So this is another major issue that has to be sorted out. But good for Professor Yunus, he had mentioned that Jamaat-e-Islami is banned, so therefore it would not be wise to have a dialogue with them.
Madam, is it correct that this is part of the Bangladeshi civil society? Sometimes secularism is it's a practice. It's like a state of mind. It's very difficult to syringe it down. It has been seen in West Asian politics post 60s and 70s. Do you agree with that? That it's not present in Bangladesh?
Let me say one thing. What I do agree with is that the Bangladesh method is to control through violence. This is ingrained in the Bangladesh mindset, that you control through violence. It is not a control through persuasion, through discussion, through voting. No. Control through violence is, I think, embedded in Bangladesh history, in the history of Bengal maybe, but certainly in Bangladesh. Now, to say that there is not a secular mindset, no, I don't agree with that, because I certainly know that I have had personal discussions with Begum Khalida Zia, with so many others, and they all profess to have a secular mindset, and they all profess, the observation of Durga Puja, the observation of so many festivals, Pelo Baishakh, and, having food together, sharing festivals. All this has been very much a part of the Bangladesh psyche, that you welcome other groups and you celebrate with them. Of course, you're religious in your own way. That is very important. Everybody is religious in their own way. Whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Sikh, you're religious in your own way. You follow your own religion.
For a minute, madam, I'll just interrupt you for a minute. These are the live visuals from Dhaka. We have been waiting for these visuals. We are streaming it live. These are the live visuals from Dhaka. Muhammad Yunus, his swearing in. He is the man of the movement. He is the man of the movement. Ambassador, please continue.
Yes, well, I think he is certainly the man of the moment, because everybody is going to see whether his coming is going to make that much of a difference. I would say what is happening today through this violence, and I told you that control through violence, establishment of power through violence is embedded there. I think the Jamaat-e-Islami is trying to exert itself and to make sure that by the time Professor Muhammad Yunus takes over as chief of the interim government, the scene has been set with Jamaat-e-Islami participation at every level, whether it is in the army or in the police or perhaps even in the bureaucracy. You know, what you had given earlier about Begum Khalda Zia, I would say that, you know, I saw her statement yesterday when she was reading out, and I was very sorry because she's very elderly now. She's old and she's weak and she's not well. So, you know, she's a shadow of her former self. And I was there and she was the Prime Minister. She was at the prime of her power. But now she's a shadow of her former self. And the fact that her son, Tariq Rahman, who has been in London for 15 years, even though now the UK government says that no, we don't have any such system, but we know that he's been taking refuge there for 15 years. But at the moment, he's not being allowed to come back to Dhaka. And I understand that is the Jamaat-e-Islami and perhaps Professor Dr. Muhammad Yunus who have together decided that he need not come back at this time. So again, this is an example of, you know, how the controls are being established in the new regime. And I think that the justification for the violence against Hindus is completely unacceptable.
Okay.
And to say that Khalda Zia did this for 5 months and so on and use that as an acceptance, I don't think this is an indication of a mature society. I don't think you can say that I'm killing you because in so-and-so date, in so-and-so year, somebody killed somebody else. You know, I don't think that's an argument to be used. You condemn both. You condemn violence now, you condemn violence then, and you try to prevent violence in the future. Because if Bangladesh is going to be a mature constitutional democracy and Bangladesh is going to attract foreign investment, then I don't think this kind of violence and ruination of assets is going to be at all useful.
Okay.
The way metros have been destroyed, works of years of infrastructure development under Sheikh Hasina, destroyed in a day, but for what? It's harming the people of Bangladesh. The money has been spent, the metros will take years to rebuild, and the advantage is gone. Similarly, the flyovers have been destroyed.
But there's one more aspect which a lot of people would like to know, which is about the students. You know, this has been a spontaneous protest. People, if recall the Tahrir or the Tunisian protest or the Velvet Revolution, they have been very, very spontaneous. People called it, the social media protest, lateral protest, no centralized leadership. Similar thing has happened in Bangladesh. Sandeep, then the larger challenge is, since the police have all melted away, civilians have melted away, the bureaucracy has melted away, how do you get the students back into universities? Isn't that the challenge? Because most of them are outside actually doing the job of the government.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the challenge in other democracies, so-called democracies like Pakistan, is that once the military comes out, it's very difficult to get them to go into the barracks. And in this case, you have, it's not so much of a problem. The fact that the students, are out there, as Salim Samad mentioned, conducting traffic and doing local warden work and all of that. But the important thing, Karthikeya, is that again it's the Bangladesh army. General Waqar-uz-Zaman is the man behind the scenes, and his men are actually running the show. Whatever is there, the kind of stability that you see is partly because of the Bangladesh army. We're hearing reports of the fact that the Bangladesh army is now staffing police stations across Bangladesh, because as we discussed yesterday, the police have simply run away. They've just deserted police stations, jails have been opened, emptied of convicts, and now it's the Bangladesh army that's drawing up a plan to staff these police stations and restore some element of law and order. So, back to your point about students going back to college, I think this will happen eventually once stability returns, and there will be a certain segment of these students, particularly Nahid Islam. I would look at his career very closely from now on, because I believe that certain forces have been unleashed by these student protests, and those forces will possibly coalesce around these student leaders and form a new political party possibly, because you know, it's a heady feeling, Kartikeya,
Is
that
that-
once you bring down, you know, a hated autocrat like, Sheikh Hasina, you've brought down her government.
Basically, you are saying that they can, you know, they can be a green shoot of a new political formation. Mr.
Absolutely,
Samad,
the third front.
Can that happen? You know, students who have led this movement can create their own political entity?
The Jamaat-e-Islami nor the BNP is going to allow the students to make their own movement. I, in fact, question the very so-called spontaneity of the students. It was not spontaneous. It was an egged-on, a created effort, very well planned to create this regime change operation that has succeeded. Because the students, let us not forget that from 2018 onwards, the quota had been abolished. And they and Sheikh Hasina were on the same page. So under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, they had been given what they wanted. The quota had been abolished. In June of this year, suddenly there's a High Court decision, an appeal is filed. And that is the question people are saying, we need to look into that. I'm getting messages from Bangladesh on this, that we need to look into that. How did that case get filed in the High Court? And how did the High Court suddenly decide that we reverse the order and restore the quota? To bring the students onto the street. That decision by the High Court brought the students back on the street. They had been off the street for the last 6 years. When they came back on the street, the government again talked to them and said, okay, we are going in appeal to the Supreme Court to again go back to that no quota at all. And some students groups actually joined the government in that. Now, while the Supreme Court gave its decision on 21st July, in the interim, there had been some violence between the Bangladeshi Chhatra League, the student wing of the Awami League, and then the student wing of the Shibir, student wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami, and the BNP student wing. They came on the scene and took over the entire agitation. So this very question of spontaneity is, I think, not at all correct. I think
I need to get Mr. Samad there. Mr. Samad, is spontaneity, the spontaneity of the protest, is it in question?
No, never, nothing. Jamaat-e-Islami and the BNP was not in the field. They absolutely, there are no students. The students know everybody. They know each of the person. They are standing right in front of back everybody. They know who are the Jamaat-e-Islami, who are the BNP. The BNP was not allowed to enter into the protest. They physically, I'm not talking about politically, they were not allowed. Even today, they are not allowed. So the Jamaat-e-Islami has a very, whatever they can do some conspiracy, but Jamaat-e-Islami in any case, according to Professor Yunus, is banned and there is nothing to discuss about them. That is all he has also mentioned. And the students have already been mentioning many times, even yesterday they also published a statement mentioning that this revolution has nothing, it is not for the two previous parties to again take opportunities from this, trying to fish in the muddy water. So they have mentioned this repeatedly, and it's also in their website and also in the Facebook page that they don't want to see those two political parties, but they did not name Awami League and BNP.
My initial question was, how do you get the students back? Do you think they're going to go back? Is it a possibility?
Yes. It is possible. It is possible because the police have started functioning from today, because Professor Yunus has already given assurance to the police that they will be protected by the students that they have killed. So the students have also promised, so they have mobilized, students. Of course, there is no university in different district town. So they have mobilized, young students from college, maybe their first year or second year. They are now guarding the police stations. And of course, you mentioned about the military. The military cannot be or are on the patrol. So obviously, they cannot have so much troops to be deployed. But they have other issues. There can be a mutiny.
We have come down to the fifth part of our conversation, which is military, because military has played a very crucial role. Military plays a crucial role in many countries neighboring us. Yes. So Bangladesh Army has played a crucial role in politics directly since 1971. Bangladesh also witnessed multiple coups over the years. Bangladesh Army carried out a coup on August 5th, 1975 and assassinated Mujibur Rahman. A second coup was carried out on November 3rd, 1975, when Ziaur Rahman was placed under house arrest. The third coup came just 4 days later and was led by left-wing army personnel, and Ziaur Rahman became the president. Ziaur Rahman founded the BNP in 1978 and won the general elections, but was overthrown and killed in 1981 by a mutinous army unit. On March 24, 1982, Lieutenant General Hussain Muhammad Irshad seized power in a bloodless coup, suspended the constitution and imposed martial law. He formed the Jatiya Party in 1986, won the election and remained president until 1990 when the pro-democracy protests ousted him. Despite a return to parliamentary democracy in 1991, military interference persisted. In 2006, political turmoil led President Ahmed to declare himself caretaker government leader. On January 11, 2007, Army Chief Lieutenant General Moin Ahmed led a coup, forming a military-backed caretaker government. Military rule ended in 2008 with national elections bringing Sheikh Hasina to power. The army stayed out of politics during the 16 years of Sheikh Hasina's reign. But what role will the army play now, Sandeep? What role will the army play now?
Well, the army prefers to be in the barracks, Karthikeya, very clearly. And Lieutenant General Waqar-uz-Zaman took one of the most crucial decisions on Monday, the 5th of August, when he told the Prime Minister that the Bangladesh army would not fire on the protesters, would not do the harsh measures that she wanted them to do. And when the Bangladesh army took that decision, when the army chief said this to her, the writing on the wall was very clear. Sheikh Hasina had to leave because then her personal safety could not be assured. So the military has, I think, to my mind, played the most crucial role here. First in telling Sheikh Hasina that they will not fire on the protesters, they will not repress the protesters, they will not become the target of the ire of the protesters. I think that is the larger fear that the military feared, that the military itself could become divided, because there was a lot of there are a lot of reports of the lower ranks being extremely unhappy with this, and I think the army chief took all this into consideration when he took that decision not to back the government and not to target the protesters. At the same time, the military also provided safe passage for Sheikh Hasina to leave the country safely with her sister. They provided the helicopter and the C-130J, which landed in Hindon Air Base, where Sheikh Hasina continues to remain. So the military has played a very important behind-the-scenes role. It's preferred to be in the barracks, does not want to capture power, would like to stabilize the situation without coming in front and, taking the ire of the protesters, becoming a target for the protesters.
Okay. So, Mr. Samad, why did this change happen?
I want to go back a little bit behind. In 1990, when General Irshad was ousted, the military, in fact, did a military democratic coup. So the military, General Nuruddin was in the helm of affairs, like today's General Waqar. He organized the two major political parties, Khaleda Zia and Sheikh Hasina, to take responsibility, because they were also under house arrest. So they were released by General Nuruddin. So military did not take any responsibility. Sometimes there are ambitious officers, they do. But General Nuruddin was also in the core team of Waqar this time. So there are three military former army chiefs was with General Waqar this time. I mean, of course, they are retired, and several Muktubani officers was also with behind Waqar. So that is possibly one of the reasons that Waqar got a lot of confidence that at least his senior officers, and of course, who has a lot of support from the junior officers. I mean, they had a lot of support, and of course, well-wishers of the younger officers. But I mean, not talking about General Waqar. I'm talking about the previous three army chief and other Muktubani officers. So they were also the key player. And one of the, let me tell you, the last thing is first is that the General Waqar, the army headquarters, did make a short list of possible advisors in the cabinet. So there were three military officers' names had appeared. I mean, those who were, the former military officers, the former Muktubani officers were in the. So, but they all declined. This is not our job. Our job is a professional soldiers. We don't want to mess up with politics. Let the politicians, let the civil society, and majority of them are from the civil society who are in the new cabinet.
Okay. Ambassador Sikri, why did the Bangladeshi army behave this way? Reuters broke a story couple of hours back, I think 48 hours back. They said that the army decided not to play along with Hasina. Why did that happen?
But I think, first of all, the reason that the army is taking a backseat dates back to 2007. Because, as Sandeep had just said, in 2007, there was an army-backed caretaker government, but the UN put out a clear point that if the army is going to be in front of the governance, their participation, the Bangladesh army's participation in UN peacekeeping operations will be suspended. So ever since then, that was a kind of a notice given by the UN to all, like in Pakistan or Bangladesh or any armies of different countries who want to participate in UN peacekeeping operations, then they must remain in their barracks. Now, for that reason, that is by this time, the army values and cherishes their participation in UN peacekeeping operations a lot. It is a hugely lucrative participation, and they don't want anything to happen to affect that. So that is why even now the army has allowed these 4 or 5 days of complete no government at all in Bangladesh, because if the army were to take the lead, it would be blamed by the UN, and Muhammad Yunus had not come back, so it happened. So that is why when you're talking about what happened on Monday and why the army did not want to do that, because again, number one, by that time, the Jamaat-e-Islami was in full control of the agitation. And we know, I was wanting to refer to a report which carried in the Daily Star on Sunday, showing that the number of killings, at that time the killings were 204. They had calculated, gone to all the hospitals and everything. 204 deaths had occurred until that time. And 53 of them were students. So that is what I was saying, that the students were there, but they were outnumbered by the other people who lost their lives, which were the must be police people and law and order keepers and political party representatives, the youth wing of the parties, and of course civilians and bystanders like that. So I think I was using that figure to say that when you talk about the spontaneity of the student movement is something else. For the actual army decision on the 5th, I would say, number one, of course, they cannot come in front because of the UN peacekeeping operation. The second is that the Jamaat-e-Islami now has taken control of the army structures. And you're going to see a much more radicalization within the Bangladesh army than has been seen before. There's been talk, and it's circulating in Dhaka. It's not mine that I'm saying, but it's circulating in Dhaka, that the new army chief is going to be announced very soon, and that is going to be a general who is the son of Ghulam Azam, who was the Amir of Jamaat-e-Islami in Bangladesh during the time of the Liberation War, and he had risen to the rank of Major General already, but under Sheikh Hasina he was removed from that post and then put under protective custody. So this is the talk in Dhaka, that there's going to be a complete change, and perhaps in the army itself, the number 2, 3 and 4 positions have already been purged and the people are not there anymore. There's a lot of change in the offing that is going to take place, and that has to be watched very carefully.
Okay, Ambassador, it's time for a short break. It's time for a short break, and the ceremony is going to start any time soon because we are cutting it live from Dhaka. Mr. Yunus is going to walk in any time. 15 people will be taking part in the swearing-in ceremony. I'm also joined by Chirayu Thakkar, Doctoral Candidate, International Relations, National University of Singapore. Thank you so much, Mr. Thakkar, for joining me. But it's time for a short break. I'll join you after the break, and our coverage on Bangladesh will continue.
Hey, careful, huh? My daddy got it from abroad. Hey, disaster! How will you pay for the loss now?
In stock market, you should take risk as per your capacity and knowledge. Trade in options very carefully.
Wow, Dikra! Absolutely perfect. Take risk with full understanding.
So much good. Invest have not quite lived up to their pre-tournament billing, delivering a series of less than convincing performances. With 2 draws and a solitary win.
Your son will be Messi. No studies, just football all day. Go, my son, go. Make my face shine through playing football.
Not only your face, but also the country's. I will conquer the world by playing football. Come, let's go to Germany!
World's largest football talent hunt, News 9 Indian Tigers and Tigresses. In association with DFB Pokal, Bundesliga, BBB and India Football Center. Train and play matches in Europe. Register now and fly to Germany. IndianTigersandTigresses.com.
Big fan of Ian Bell, watching him very classy in all formats.
I find Durban quite a challenge, which is still an enjoyable one.
You're not allowed to bowl a bouncer, so that tells you that they want to see runs on the board.
बड़े अच्छे टूर्स किए हैं, बड़ी अच्छी यादें हैं हर जगह की, जहाँ मैंने पर्सनली क्रिकेट को बहुत एंजॉय किया, ऑस्ट्रेलिया एंड इंडिया में बहुत ज़्यादा एंजॉय किया.
I love playing again England and India, and they were both very different challenges.
Up close and personal with legendary cricketers like never before. Icons of the pitch. This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
So I'm Payal Nath, the CEO and director of Kadam Heart. You're working with people, you're working with emotions, you're working with hands, you're working with nature.
We are very clear, we want to commit to livelihoods, we want to commit to the planet, we want to impact 1 million artisans, which is 1 million families minimum.
Be the change that you want to see.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Fast. My God, isn't she your daughter?
Yes.
She's playing football. This is boys' game. Make her study. If she doesn't get a good job, she will get a good match. Will you win the world by playing football?
Yes, auntie. My daughter will win the world by playing football.
Let's go to Germany.
World's largest football talent hunt. News 9 Indian Tigers and Tigresses. In association with DFB Pokal, Bundesliga, BVB and India Football Center. Train and play matches in Europe. Register now and fly to Germany. IndianTigersandTigresses.com.
This is News 9 Live, India's only digital exclusive live stream. For the early adopters, bringing you the news 24/7. For the smart audiences on the smartest TVs. News 9 Live. Stream now on your smart TVs.
How do you fulfill that promise? Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces that dead bodies surface but not the living people?
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है मनी 9। आजादी पैसे की। अभी डाउनलोड करें।
For the very first time in our investigation, we unmasked the killer of Ravindra Matre.
In 5G, we have to stand with the world, and in 6G, we have to lead the world.
Winning a Grammy was an absolutely surreal experience.
Welcome back, and now the live visuals are streaming in from Dhaka. Everyone is waiting for the man of the moment, and the man of the moment is Mr. Yunus. Let me go across straight away to Chirayu Thakkar. I think not many people expected that very swiftly this swearing in will take place in Dhaka the way things were panning out?
Karthikeya, good evening and thank you for having me. I think yes, it shows a clear intention that on part of the army that they don't want to give this position to a man in uniform. Their calculus might be different and we can just speculate at this point. But this seems the redux of what happened with Ashraf Ghani, and back then a Columbia professor was brought in. It was an anthropologist back then. This time it is an economist, and huge burden lies on the shoulder of Muhammad Yunus. There are so many expectations. He is being foisted on a country that is riven with almost a civil war between two warring political factions and many subdivisions within. So at this stage, he is taking the center stage, and he had political ambitions in the past. Remember that in 2007-8 there was a caretaker government, and back then he has tried to rather unsuccessfully float his own political outfit, which did not work. So there is a convergence of army's unwillingness to be in the front, Yunus's political desire, and his Western backers, if you can use that word, to promote him. So I think what we are seeing on the screen right now is a convergence of a host of factors.
Stop you for a minute. I think the ceremony has started.
সম্মানিত সুধীবৃন্দ, গণপ্রজাতন্ত্রী বাংলাদেশের মহান রাষ্ট্রপতি, অনুষ্ঠান শুরু করার জন্য মহামান্য রাষ্ট্রপতির সানুগ্রহ অনুমতি প্রার্থনা করছি। বিসমিল্লাহির রহমানির রহিম। মহামান্য রাষ্ট্রপতি, অবগত অতিথিবৃন্দ, সহকর্মীবৃন্দ, মিডিয়ার সদস্যবৃন্দ, সম্মানিত সুধী মণ্ডলী, আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আজ 24 শ্রাবণ 1431, 8 আগস্ট 2024 গণপ্রজাতন্ত্রী বাংলাদেশের অন্তর্বর্তীকালীন সরকারের প্রধান উপদেষ্টা ও উপদেষ্টাগণের শপথ গ্রহণ অনুষ্ঠানে আপনাদেরকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। অনুষ্ঠানের শুরুতেই আমি গভীর শ্রদ্ধার সাথে স্মরণ করছি স্বাধীনতা যুদ্ধের অমর শহীদ, বীর মুক্তিযোদ্ধা ও সম্ভ্রমহারা মা বোনদের। আমি সাম্প্রতিক ছাত্র জনতার গণঅভ্যুত্থানের সকল শহীদের প্রতি গভীর শ্রদ্ধা জ্ঞাপন করছি এবং তাদের বিদেহী আত্মার মাগফিরাত কামনা করছি। তাদের প্রতি সম্মান জানিয়ে আমরা এখন 1 মিনিট নীরবতা পালন করব।
Started. Mr. Thakkar, the function has started. And very soon, we will have Mr. Yunus. But what will be the biggest challenge of Mr. Yunus, Mr. Thakkar? Mr. Samad, where is this ceremony taking place, sir?
Yes, right now, yeah.
Where is this ceremony taking place, sir? Can you just describe the ceremony for us, sir?
Okay, but for the event, they started with recitation from the Quran, and I believe they will also recitation from Gita as well as from the Buddhist scripture. That's a ritual. So you have to wait for another 10-15 minutes because of this.
10-15 minutes. 10-15 minutes.
Yes, of course, because there will be Bible recitation from Bible, from Gita, from Tripitaka.
Okay, so how many 5 religions would be represented, sir?
Islam. The religion, in fact, is always a ritual for the government function that they will start with reciting from Quran, Bible, Gita, and Tripitaka.
That's very unique.
Yes. And that tells you what Bangladesh is really. It's a secular democracy. It's not an Islamic Republic of Bangladesh. And I think that is what the biggest worry is for us, that if Bangladesh moves towards the path of other countries like Pakistan, what will happen to the minorities? If God forbid Bangladesh were to become another Pakistan, that would be really, really ruinous. And all the development of the last so many years would end here. And I think that is really the big worry and why we are looking at the situation with such alarm. When you see, the BNP and the Jamaat and all of these forces coming out on the streets and attacking, minorities. It's not just Hindus. You have Christians there. Bangladesh is a very vibrant Christian community and a Buddhist community as well. Chakmas and all of these minorities are at great risk in Bangladesh, and this is not uniquely a 2024 moment. This has happened in the past as well. But one thought that we would have moved away from all of that. But when you see those visuals, you're always reminded of the history of Bangladesh, the fact that it's had a very violent history, as Salim Samad mentioned as well. There have been extremely violent incidents in the past. There have been religious pogroms, minorities have been targeted, and which is why the percentage of minorities come down to single digits. As a percentile, less than 8%. Okay. At one point, there used to be almost 20%. And that is one of the reasons that when I was in Bangladesh meeting Salim Samad and many other friends, one of them actually said that, listen, Sheikh Hasina is an autocrat, but she's the one person standing between Bangladesh and the Islamists. And once she moves out of the scene, the Islamists will take over. Of course, Salim would have a different view on this, because he says that they have appeased the Islamists as well. But for the longest time, Sheikh Hasina managed to keep the Islamists at bay for the 15 years that she was there.
Okay. Now let's straight away go across. And now the swearing in is taking place. I'll ask this to Mr. Samad. What is the tradition? No Bible, no Gita?
Read out the oath.
বিসমিল্লাহির-রহমানির-রহিম। প্রধান উপদেষ্টার শপথ। আমি মোহাম্মদ ইউনুস সশ্রদ্ধ চিত্তে শপথ গ্রহণ করতেছি যে আমি আইন অনুযায়ী অন্তর্বর্তীকালীন সরকারের প্রধান উপদেষ্টা পদে কর্তব্য বিশ্বস্ততার সহিত পালন করিব। আমি বাংলাদেশের প্রতি অকৃত্রিম বিশ্বাস ও আনুগত্য পোষণ করিব। আমি সংবিধানের রক্ষণ সমর্থন ও নিরাপত্তা বিধান করিব এবং আমি ভীতি বা অনুগ্রহ অনুরাগ বা বিরাগের বশবর্তী না হইয়া সকলের প্রতি আইন অনুযায়ী যথাবিহিত আচরণ করিব।
এবার মাননীয় প্রধান উপদেষ্টাকে গোপনতার শপথ পাঠ করানোর জন্য মহামান্য রাষ্ট্রপতিকে বিনীত অনুরোধ জানাচ্ছি।
আমি মোহাম্মদ ইউনুস সশ্রদ্ধ চিত্তে শপথ গ্রহণ করিতেছি যে অন্তর্বর্তীকালীন সরকারের প্রধান উপদেষ্টা রূপে যে সকল বিষয় আমার বিবেচনার জন্য আনিত হইবে বা যে সকল বিষয় আমি অবগত হইব তাহা প্রধান উপদেষ্টা রূপে যথাযথভাবে আমার কর্তব্য পালনের প্রয়োজন ব্যতীত প্রত্যক্ষ বা পরোক্ষভাবে কোনো ব্যক্তিকে জ্ঞাপন করিব না বা কোনো ব্যক্তির নিকট প্রকাশ করিব না।
Finally, that big movement has passed. Mr. Sabat, you were telling me that there will be some readings from the Bible and Gita. Was that skipped this time?
That has possibly been done on the sideline, but that is a ritual. So, because one thing is very important that you have mentioned in the cabinet, and the cabinet means in the interim government, there is a very senior, respectable Hindu, a very respectable Adivashi. Adivashi means he's from the Chakma community, and of course there are even don't quote me. There are two atheists in the cabinet.
Two. Sandeep, did you ever think 30 days ago that Yunus would be flying back to Dhaka?
Well,
when the protest was happening and taking charge of the country, which is very important to us.
I'm not very surprised because Karthikeya, on your show, if you remember, on the 5th of August, I said the man I would be looking out for very closely is Professor Muhammad Yunus. Because I knew that this, there are people who would say that this whole thing is scripted and all that, but the other realization was that there was not anyone on the Bangladesh political scene today who commands widespread respect and for the international community also to signal to the international community as well. I think Professor Muhammad Yunus is that person, and he is literally, like you said, he's the man of the moment now. So I actually kind of saw it coming a few days back.
Okay.
Especially on the 5th of August.
Epiphany.
Exactly.
Epiphany.
Yeah, it's the epiphany. Because you're looking at,
let's cut these visuals full screen. Let's cut these visuals full screen. Let people have the full view. Yes, Sandeep, continue.
So, you're looking at a Bangladesh that is literally denuded of credible politicians once Sheikh Hasina left the scene. The other Begum, as we just saw, extremely frail.
Okay.
Extremely frail, weak, of shadow of her former self. So literally the binary of Begums in Bangladesh, if you can say, binary of Begums in Bangladesh is now over.
I think the battle of Begums is over, and
yes.
I think that this, South Asian democracies have this unique, it's unique in context of the political widowhood, which many people, anthropologists, have written about, how from powerful dynastic families, women have risen through the ranks, demonstrated their ability to govern the country. In fact, stamped their will on it, and and they have done it on whether it's Sri Lanka, whether it's Bangladesh, whether it's India, Pakistan.
You're either a widow, you're a daughter, or you're a wife.
Yes, absolutely.
Or a companion of a famous male political leader.
But to our viewers, I would say the story has not ended. The story has not ended. I would say the story starts today.
Yes.
You know why story starts today? Because in my show, I always try my best not to evaluate any social ethnic strife only from the perspective of national security. Sandeep, and the reason why I do it is because you deny sociologically people their agency. You know, one can say it's a coup or CIA has done another than that. It's like, for example, the tension in Manipur. There is a local issue, you know, which can get mutated and heightened because of foreign participation. But that basic issue has to be domestic. Even Bangladesh has a basic domestic issue, and I would like all my friends to visit our News 9 Plus application, because there are a number of premium content on it which will take you to the, not to the what of the story, not to the who of the story, not to the when of the story, not to the how of the story. It will take away straight to why of the story. Why? So I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope you will enjoy those documentaries which are parked there on our application. Thank you, Sandeep.
Thanks, Karthika. Pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Give it to me, pass. We'll put new glasses in the windows and they keep breaking it. This is the fourth time. You are playing football throughout the day. Will you win the world by playing football?
Yes,